We'll begin with concentrating to Mother's music. I hope it was audible this time. Yeah? Okay, great. So the title of our talk today is Impermanence, Emptiness, and Love, and how the three are really the same, three sides of the same coin. If we can imagine a coin which has three sides. But to understand any of this, we have to revisit our understanding of quantum physics, and I'm briefly going to touch upon it. Though we've touched upon it many times in the past, but we'll briefly touch upon it. Only then what we are going to discuss further will make any sense. So quantum physics actually explains the phenomena which we are to ourselves. So I am convinced that I am this body, but if you look further, this body is made up of cells. The cells are made up of molecules, atoms. You break up an atom, it's made up at a very quantum level, a subatomic level, of these very strange particles called bosons, fermions, quarks, which blink in and out of existence. They are there one moment, they are not, and at a speed which is one followed by, say, 50 zeros. We can't even name the number, so fast in 1 second. Now, when anything moves so fast, it creates the illusion of solidity. Like if we increase the blades of a fan, the speed of rotation of a fan, 10,000 times its normal speed, it will actually look like a solid white disk, which we'll be able to hold in our hands. But it's not a solid white disk. It's three fans rotating. Similarly, we are not solid. We are just energy that's moving at such a rapid rate that there's the impression of a solid body. So sages knew about this in the past, and the very root Jagat, the phenomenal world of appearances, comes from two Sanskrit roots, Ja, Janma, and Gat, Gati, born out of speed. So this whole world of appearances is not what it appears to be. It's just an appearance which is woven out of speed. So let's keep this in mind, that what I feel is a solid structure here is actually energy changing moment to moment. So my root is what the Buddha calls impermanence or anicca. There is no permanent self here. I am constantly changing, but changing so rapidly that the speed creates an illusion of permanence where there is none. Okay, so we go further. So we come to the first part, impermanence. What a person calls self is a mental, physical structure, an impersonal stream of transitory events, each one caused by the one, not force, it should be before. Each one caused by the one before. So, what I'm calling myself is a mental, physical structure, which I think is very personal to me. But the Buddha says it's actually an impersonal stream of transitory, impermanent events, each one caused by the one before. I suffer not because of what has happened to me, but because I was unable to detach myself from the reactions of those events within my mind body. I am actually energy which is moving very fast, and my subconscious mind is constantly reacting to those energy sensations in my body. And that is what gives me reactivity. Objectivity is freedom from suffering. Detachment from internal reactivity releases energy for giving. External fate may be imposed upon each of us, but psychological fate is a matter of consciousness and decision. What happens to us outside may be imposed on us, may be forced on us, but how we react to it inside us, psychological fate is a matter of consciousness and decision. The path of yoga consists of making every thought in every moment a seed of equanimity that will bear the fruit of love and peace. So, the path we follow consists of making every thought in every moment a seed of samatha, equanimity, which will bear the fruit of love and peace. Now, through our talk today, we'll explore how to make this happen. How do we make every thought in every moment a seed of equanimity, which will bear the fruit of love and peace? Born with neurons, we will feel pain. Born with hearts, we will cry. The gift of love is conditional. Only if we use it can we have it. And to use it means to realize that pains and sorrows of existence are not merely circumstantial, caused by circumstances, but are intrinsic to tissue and to mind. So the gift of life is conditional. It's if only if we know how to use this gift of life, we can have it. That's the condition. Only if we have the pragya, the wisdom to use this gift of life, we can have it. Noble suffering is distress that serves as provocation to relinquish ourselves. Relinquish, give up ourselves. Give up ourselves means look through the notion of ourselves. I'm very convinced I'm a person, Anaita, sitting here. And if life is good, I'm very happy to be this Anaita. But when I suffer, I question what this Anaita is all about. And I'm forced to come to the bottom of this mystery called Anaita and look beyond the notion of myself. relinquish ourselves, see through the illusion of myself. Soon the trees, birds, school children, and grandparents will be felt crying out for your healing emanations that convey this hurting and inconstant self is not really you. So beautiful to constantly remember that this hurting and inconstant self, because what I'm calling myself is energy which is changing moment to moment, weaving the illusion of mind and body, like blades of fan moving so fast that they create the illusion of solidity. That's so beautiful in every moment when I hurt, to see through that this hurting, inconstant self is not really me. This sense of self changes thought to thought. And to hold this in my mind constantly is what it's meant earlier when we say to relinquish ourselves, provocation to relinquish ourselves, to see through the hurting, inconstant self and know that it is not really me. From the experiential realization that all things are anicca, impermanent. The Pali word for impermanent is anicca. That I am anicca comes the deepest empathy possible. A feeling of kinship with all beings who are suffering alike, who suffer alike from the pain aroused by the illusion of a separate self, a feeling of fellowship with all beings who yearn for liberation from the agony of separation and the dissolution of death. So, if we constantly realize that I don't exist. At least I don't exist how I think I exist. Of course, I exist as a reality which I'm not in touch with. But this thought of I, who's hurting, who's reacting, that I changes thought to thought. It's a I, it's a nature. And when I really see that in myself and I gain a little freedom from suffering, I feel a huge compassion for all other beings who are suffering like I suffered in moments when I was identified with the I in my thought. And I'll be able to see through that I. And when I see through the I, that's where a moment of love arises. Because so long as I'm very identified with my I, love doesn't happen. We'll see that as the talk follows. But if you have any questions, anything to share, please put it on the chat. Generosity, compassion, simplicity are the spontaneous expressions of a worldview in which nothing can be kept. So, very often I am mean to others because I'm possessive about things that are important to me. And when they threaten that, the worst in me comes out. For example, I could be possessive about material things, I could be possessive about success. So if I see somebody else getting similar success, I don't like it and it brings out envy, jealousy, etc. But if you really realize that everything is impermanent, then you're not likely to, you'll see the futility of holding on to anything because it's going to slip out of your hand like water slips out of your hand when you try to hold on to the waters of a river, isn't it? They flow out of your hands. So every moment I can enjoy everything, reminding myself it's impermanent, it's going to change, it's going to change. I'm not going to be possessive about it. And when I'm not possessive about it, generosity, compassion, simplicity are the spontaneous expressions of a worldview in which nothing can be kept. Suffering is a common bond, and materiality is only an obstacle to a finer trajectory of spirit. People who have vibrated deeply in anicca know that every pocket sooner or later gets a hole. Since nothing can be kept, it might as well be shared. What a beautiful thought if you go into it. Every pocket, metaphorically, every pocket which holds something precious to you has a hole. Sooner or later, that precious thing will slip out of the hole. It will change to something else. Other precious things will come. But people who vibrate deeply in anicca know that every bucket sooner or later gets a hole. Since nothing can be kept, it might as well be shared. Therefore, anicca is directly linked to generosity, compassion, and simplicity. So that was about impermanence. Now we come to emptiness or shunyata. So this is by Osho. So remember, with a master, you're not on a head trip. Doubt and beliefs are all head trips. With a master, you're on a heart trip. And heart doesn't know what doubt is. Heart doesn't know what belief is. Heart simply knows trust. The psychic being simply knows Kalyan Shraddha. Heart is just like a small child. The small child clings to the father's hand, and wherever the father is going, the child is going, neither trusting nor doubting. The child is undivided. Doubt is half, belief is half. A child is still total, whole. He simply goes wherever the father is going. When a disciple becomes just like a child, then only these gifts of the highest peak of consciousness can be given. When you become the deepest valley of reception, then the highest peaks of consciousness can be given to you. Only a valley can receive a peak. A disciple should be absolutely feminine, receptive, like a womb. So, when you're on a head trip, too much of your I will keep coming in. I want to know, I want to understand, how can it be? But he's saying that the truth really reveals itself when you're not on a head trip, you're on a heart trip, where there's no question of doubt or belief. It's like if your master tells you something, there's no trying to understand it. You believe that he said it, it is so. Like Nisargadatta Maharaj, we all know that he was quite a common person. And once his guru came to wherever he was, and the guru was a great Vedanti, and he just gave his teachings and said, "You are that, Tattvamasi." And having accepted this person as his guru, the Nisargadatta Maharaj didn't question it. He said, "My guru has said, I am that, I am Brahman." And he received that teaching so much from a heart trip that he got enlightened. And he was an uneducated man. So that's what Osho means here, that heart is just like a small child. The small child clings to the father's hand, the mother's hand. Wherever the father is going, the child is going, neither trusting nor doubting. The child is undivided. Doubt is half, belief is half. A child is still total, whole. He simply goes with the father wherever he is going. When a disciple becomes just like a child, then only these gifts of the highest peak of consciousness can be given. When you become the deepest valley of reception, then the highest peaks of consciousness can be given to you. Only a valley can receive a peak. A disciple should be absolutely feminine, receptive, like a womb. And in fact, the mother says when we read Sri Aurobindo, the best way to read him is with a quiet mind, without questions, without doubt, with complete receptivity. If the disciple is so receptive that he has no mind of his own, he does not judge whether it is right or wrong. He has no mind of his own. He has surrendered his mind to the Master. He is simply a receptivity, an emptiness, ready to welcome whatsoever is given unconditionally. Then words and symbols are not needed. Then something can be given, and you can listen to it between the words. You can read it between the lines. Then words are just an excuse. This is so true when we are reading Savitri, especially. You may not understand the words so much. The words are just an excuse, but it transports you to another kind of feel and flavor in your being. And you can listen to it between the words. You can read it between the lines. Then words are just an excuse. The real thing happens just by the side of the words. So, in the writings of the Buddhist master Tilopa, there are sutras on the Mahamudra. What is Mahamudra? The great gesture. It's a metaphor. Mahamudra is an experience of nothingness. Simply you are not. And when you are not, then who is there to suffer? Who is there to be in pain and anguish? Who is there to be depressed and sad? And who is there to be happy and blissful? The first thing to understand is that the concept of self is created by the mind. There is no self in you. The first thing to understand is that the concept of self, that I am Anita, is created by the mind. There is no self in you. So, we all know that the Buddha had a disciple, Ananda, very, very close to him. And once, towards the last few days of the Buddha, Ananda asked the Buddha that, Lord, give me one sentence that sums up all your teachings. And the Buddha said, I'll do far better than that. I'll give you a gesture that sums up all my teachings. And the Buddha did this and this. So this is Mahamudra. This is grasping what the mother calls individualization, becoming an I. And then Mahamudra is the gesture of letting go of that I. So Mahamudra is an experience of nothingness. Simply you are not. And when you are not, then who is there to suffer? Who is there to be in pain and anguish? Who is there to be depressed and sad? And who is there to be happy and blissful? The first thing to understand is that the concept of self is created by the mind. There is no self in you. This is an interesting story. It happened. A great Buddhist, a man of enlightenment, was invited by a king to teach him. The name of the Buddhist monk was Nagasen, and the king was a viceroy of Alexander. When Alexander went back from India, he left Menander as his viceroy here, and his Indian name is Milinda. Milinda asked Nagasen to come and teach him. He was really interested, and he had heard many stories about Nagasen, and the rumors had come to the court. This is a rare phenomenon. Rarely it happens that a man flowers, and this man, Nagasen, has flowered. He has an aroma of something unknown around him, a mysterious energy. He walks on earth, but he is not of the earth. So Milinda became interested. He invited Nagasen. The messenger who went to Nagasen came back very much puzzled because Nagasen said, yes, if he invites, Nagasen will come. But tell him there is no one like Nagasen. If he invites, I will come. But tell him exactly that there is no one like I am. I am no more. The messenger was puzzled because if Nagasen is no more, then who will come? And Milinda was also puzzled. He said, this man talks in puzzles, but let him come. And he was a Greek, this Milinda, and the Greek mind is basically logical. There are only two minds in the world, the Indian and the Greek. The Indian is illogical, the Greek is logical. The Indian moves in the dark depths, wild depths where there are no boundaries. Everything is vague, cloudy. The Greek mind walks on the logical, the straight, where everything is defined and classified. The Greek mind moves into the unknown. The Indian mind moves into, the Greek mind moves into the known. The Indian mind moves into the unknown and even more into the unknowable. The Greek mind is absolutely rational. The Indian mind is absolutely contradictory. So if you find too many contradictions in me, this is Osho talking, don't be bothered. It is the way. In the East, contradiction is the way to relate. Milinda said, this man seems to be irrational, gone mad. If he is not, then how can he come? But let him come. I will see. I will prove. Just by coming, he is proving that he is. Then came Nagasen. Milinda received him at the gate, and the first thing he asked, he said, I am puzzled that you have come. And still was said that you are not. Nagasen said, still I say, so let's settle it here. A crowd gathered, the whole court came here, and Nagasen said, you ask. Milinda asked, first tell me if something is not, how can it come? In the first place, it is not. Then there is no possibility of its coming, and you have come. It is simple logic that you are. Nagasen laughed and he said, look at this Rath chariot, the bullock cart on which he had come. He said, look at this. You call it a Rath, a cart? Milinda said, yes. Then he told his followers to remove the bullocks. The bullocks were removed. And Nagasen asked, are these bullocks the cart? Milinda said, of course not. Then by and by, everything from the cart was removed, every part. Wheels were removed, and he asked, are these wheels the cart? And Milinda said, of course not. Then everything was removed, and there was nothing. Then Nagasen asked, where is the cart I had come in? And we never removed the cart, and all that we have removed, you confirmed that this is not the cart. Now, where is the cart? Nagasen said, just like this Nagasen exists, remove parts and he will disappear. Just crisscrossing lines of energy. Remove the lines and the dot will disappear. The cart is just a combination of parts. So let's pause here and go a little more into understanding this, that the cart doesn't exist because the cart is made up of bullocks, wheels, whatever. And if you remove the bullocks, wheels one by one, there's no cart. So the Buddha said, he talked about pratitya samutpad, codependent origination. where he said this piece of paper is actually made up of sunshine, the carpenter who chopped the tree, earth, water. So the paper is actually made up of all non-paper elements. Do you get that? Everything that I call anaita is made up of non-anaita elements. And those non-anaita elements come together to give an appearance of an anaita who doesn't really exist. Am I clear? Is it, if there are any questions, because this is a very subtle concept? Is it clear what I'm saying? Okay, then we continue. So, you are also a combination of parts. The I is a combination of parts. Remove things and the I will disappear. That's why when thoughts are removed from consciousness, you cannot say I because there is no I. Just a vacuum is left. When feelings are removed, the self disappears completely. You are not, you are, and yet not. Just an absence with no boundaries, emptiness. This is the final attainment. This state is Mahamudra, the ultimate gesture. Because only in that state you can have an orgasm, a consummation with the whole of existence. Now there is no boundary, no self exists. There is no boundary to you to divide. So we started with impermanence, which we see that the I that I think I am is changing thought to thought. Even the body as a field of energy is changing many times in 1 second. So there is nothing solid and permanent to this stream of mind body that I'm calling myself. And then if there is nothing permanent to it, you see emptiness. So the concept of shunyata, that all phenomena of mind and body are empty of a real permanent self. Okay? There is a permanent reality behind. But whatever we are experiencing as I, me, there is no real lasting self to that. So that is emptiness. Empty of a real permanent self. All phenomena of mind and matter are empty of a real permanent self. Now we come to the next part, love. On nothing, Mahamudra rests. Mahamudra, the literal word, means the great gesture or the ultimate gesture, the last that you can have, beyond which nothing is possible. Mahamudra rests on nothing. You be a nothing, and then all is attained. You die and you become a god. You die to yourself. Savitri has that line, annul thyself that only God can be. You die and you become a god. You disappear and you become the whole. Here the drop disappears, and there the ocean comes into existence. The drop is my boundary of I, me, myself. When that boundary is gone, the drop becomes the ocean. Let me explain it to you through some experience that you have got. When you love a person, you have to become nothing. When you love a person, you have to become no self. That is why love is so difficult. And that is why Jesus says God is like love. He knows something about Mahamudra because before he started teaching in Jerusalem, he had been to India, he had been to Tibet also. When you love, you have to become nobody. If you remain somebody, then love never happens. Whether it's the Divine Mother, whether it's a person, so long as you keep remembering yourself, your remembrance of yourself will not really allow you to love. So the mother says it very simply, no, the way is difficult, but self-forgetting and self-giving makes it easy. Give away your notion of yourself. Be so mesmerized by what you love that you forget about yourself. When you love, you have to become nobody. If you remain somebody, then love never happens. When you love a person, even for a single moment, love happens and flows between two persons. There are two nothingnesses, not two persons. If you have ever had any experience of love, you can understand. Two lovers sitting by each other's side, or two nothingnesses sitting together. Only then the meeting is possible, because barriers are broken, boundaries thrown away, the energy can move from here to there. There is no hindrance. So now we come to a passage from Savitri. Now, this is taken from a canto where Savitri has attained nirvana. She has become this empty shell. She has become this point where the drop has become the ocean. So it says, it, that is her consciousness, held as if a shield before its face. A consciousness that saw without a seer. There is no person to see, but seeing happens. This is very like what the Buddha says. There is no one to think, but thinking happens. There is no one to speak, but speaking happens, because there's no personality left. A consciousness that saw without a seer. A truth where knowledge is not, nor knower, nor known. The love, enamored of its own delight, in which the lover is not, nor the beloved. So when you reach this emptiness, there is no me, there is no you. There is a field of oneness, and that field of oneness is Ananda, that is love. So love enamored, in love with its own delight. It's not love with an object, because there is no object. Everything is a seamless oneness. The love enamored of its own delight, in which lover is not, nor the beloved, bringing their personal passion into the vast, the force omnipotent in quietude, the bliss that none can ever hope to taste. It cancelled. So, this consciousness, which was something that saw without a seer, it cancelled the convincing cheat of self. So, the self we live with is a cheat. But once Savitri had risen to that consciousness, this convincing cheat of self was cancelled. It was annulled. Annul thyself that only God may be. A truth in nothingness was its mighty clue. If all existence could renounce to be, and being take refuge in non-being's arms, and non-being could strike out its ciphered round. Cipher is a zero. So non-being is shunyata, emptiness. And non-being could strike out its ciphered round, meaning the boundary of the zero also disappears. There's just nothing. Some luster of that reality might appear. A formless liberation came on her, on Savitri. One sepulchred. Sepulchre is a coffin. So one, she was as if in a coffin of brain and flesh, because If we are not really awakened to our true self, we belong to the living dead, right? So once Savitri was also like us, once sepulchred alive in brain and flesh, she had risen up from body, mind, and life. She was no more a person in a world. She had escaped into infinity. So I'll just read this whole passage from Savitri, just without explanation. Let's just sense its words rather than pay too much attention to understanding. It held as if a shield before its face, a consciousness that saw without a seer, a truth where knowledge is not, nor knower, nor known, the love enamored of its own delight, in which the lover is not, nor the beloved, bringing their personal passion into the vast, a force omnipotent in quietude, the bliss that none can ever hope to taste. It cancelled the convincing cheat of self. A truth in nothingness was its mighty clue. If all existence could renounce to be, and being take refuge in non-being's arms, and non-being could strike out its ciphered round, some luster of that reality might appear. A formless liberation came on her, once sepulchred alive in brain and flesh. She had risen up from body, mind, and life. She was no more a person in a world. She had escaped into infinity. So, any questions, anything to share before we sum up our session? I'll wait. If you want, you can even put it on our chat. Okay, so I'm guessing there are no more questions. This topic is ambiguous. It's very subtle, but I'm increasingly thinking that, of course, in yoga, bhakti has a great part. But if we don't balance it by, to some extent, following the Gyan Marg also, our bhakti is very imbalanced and it's blind. Whereas if we balance it with the wisdom of the Gyan Marg, we come to the truth of what Nisarga Datta Maharaj, I think it was him who said, that love, bhakti tells me I am everything. Wisdom tells me I am nothing. And between the two, my life flows. So, wisdom will take you to questioning yourself till you reach emptiness. Annul thyself. Wisdom takes you to that point of annulling yourself. And then the real bhakti can flower that only God may be, because the real barrier to loving is my sense of I, my ego. Ego is not just arrogance. Ego is ahankar, the akar my aham takes thought to thought. And so long as I'm identified with ahankar, all my energies are invested into preserving this I. In every interaction, subconsciously, I'm thinking, how did I look? What did I get? Did I appear well? There's very little room to really see what we are loving, because we are all the time consumed by self-seeing, self-absorption, self-regard. But wisdom helps me to see through this I and releases energy to give to the world around. Only then love is really possible, when I stop existing. So, and also the other thing is true. Sometimes I remember that in my first few visits to Pandi, There was one time when I was at the Samadhi, and it was a very strange feeling. There was such an absorption in loving the mother that it was a window of not feeling any sense of I. And I remember feeling surprised. I can't explain that feeling, but it was such a release. Suddenly, there was a feeling of there's no thought of myself, how I look, how I appear, what I will get. All that was gone. And I feel only then love is possible. Otherwise, of course, love is there, but it's a deformed, degraded love. But the real love happens when you disappear. Only when I am annulled, then God can be. So let's just sit quietly and let's just summarize the whole talk and see how we can take it into our life. Okay, so we started our talk by understanding that this mind body mechanism, which I call myself, doesn't really exist because this body is made up of cells, which are made up of molecules, which are made up of atoms. Atoms are made up of, at a very subatomic levels, these mysterious particles which are blinking in and out of existence so fast that they give the appearance of solidity. The best we can understand this is the example of the fan. There are three blades of the fan, but if we increase its speed, it looks like many blades. If we increase its speed to 10,000 times its normal speed, it will look like a solid white disk which you can hold in your hand. Apply this metaphor of the fan to your body, that you are actually energy which is moving so fast that you're appearing to be solid, but you're actually with energy which is constantly changing. And because of this constant change, the whole field of mind and matter is what the Buddha calls anicca, impermanent. And to constantly remind yourself that every thought is impermanent, every body sensation is impermanent, every sense of I that comes in every thought, it's impermanent, it's going to change, it's going to pass away. That somehow gives you a sense of freedom. It makes you see that your notion of yourself doesn't really exist. It brings you to what the Buddha called shunyata or emptiness, that all phenomena of mind and matter are empty of a permanent, lasting self. S with a small s. So if I can constantly, so let's experience this right now. Shut your eyes and just feel your body. You may have a headache somewhere. You may have a pleasant sensation or an unpleasant sensation somewhere or the other. But just to recognize it's changing. Even as you're reacting to it, it's changing. And see if just that thought that everything is changing, why react to something that has already changed by the time I complete reacting to it? And then, if I look at my thoughts and I see that the I in the thought is changing thought to thought. In certain thoughts, it's an inflated I, where the I looks good in my eyes and I feel happy about it. In other thoughts, where I remember criticism or whatever, the I is shrunken. So this I changes thought to thought. I am not that I in the thought. I am the awareness space in which the I arises. That awareness space is impersonal. The I is highly personal, highly touchy, highly sensitive in a wrong way. But the awareness that I am beyond this I, it's impersonal, it's wide, it's vast. And when this I drops, then love arises. Beautiful line in Sri Aurobindo Savitri, annul thyself, that only God may be. God is this awareness that I am beyond the mental formations and thoughts. And the fabric of that awareness is love, peace, and oneness. The barrier to love is my sense of I. At every moment, if I can see through this sense of I'm already in the arms of love. I am the arms of love. So impermanence leads to emptiness. And emptiness is really the fullness of love. So we can stop here. If there are no more questions and nothing to say, I can conclude the meeting here. Yeah? Okay. Bye, everyone.